guess I'm welcoming everybody at this point. Uh, and I wanted to, welcome, we've got Stephanie Bonin and Keith Marks with us. Stephanie, as everybody knows, is Executive Director of Downtown Brattleboro Alliance, and Keith is Executive Director of Next Stage Arts in Putney. And we're going to be talking about, as you know, getting attention for your events, programs, activities, etc., and different ways of doing it. Something happened today that I was taken aback by. And I think it relates to what we're going to be talking about. And that is when William Shatner, 90 years old, from Star Trek, who was captain of Star Trek, actually went into space today and landed and came out of the capsule and was totally transformed. And the idea, just the idea of having the Star Trek captain go to space, 90 years old, and be the oldest person to ever go into space, and come out of it and talk about how he was in tears. But one of the things that especially I was taken with is when he started talking about what you see and going from light through a little blue line and going into darkness. And he kind of referred that to maybe that's death. I mean, let's face it. So looking down on our little earth, we are alive because of this very thin blue line. And I thought to myself, as a PR person, I'm thinking, oh my God, the climate change people need to get a hold of him immediately and have him be their spokesperson. So anyway, these are the kinds of things I want everyone to feel. What we want to do is be creative. We want to capture the imagination of the public, your public, the media, and different ways to do it. I just have a couple of quick photos. These are some projects that I was involved in years ago. But okay, now take a look at this. This was a special idea to help celebrate the celebration of the signing of the Constitution. I think it was the 200th anniversary. This is the Citicorp Center. They were a client. But these flags, made such a statement. So here is kind of the visual aspect of something in disrupting. I think Keith talks about disrupting people's lives, seeing something they've never seen before. Okay, let's go on to the next. Right here in Brattleboro, what do we have? Obviously, the strolling of the heifers. This was also visual. This also grabbed people's attention. But the reason, one of the reasons we did this is because we could then really talk about the serious aspects of why we were, about agriculture, about the farms. We were losing our farms, about the fact that farmers needed assistance. So we used this visual, fun activity. Not only that, it drew people obviously to Brattleboro. But the concept was something fun, something visual, get people's attention, get the media's attention, do a little bit for tourism, but then have a serious side. We actually wanted kids to learn where their food came from. We did projects in the schools and that sort of thing. And we got lots of publicity. Next slide. As an example, all across the country. And actually, when we first announced it, we had international press. The Brattleboro Reformer put it on the wire, and it went all over the world. Next slide. This is a little more serious program. This was something I had done a bunch of high school debating for Citicorp in New York, and somehow someone got a hold of me from Lincoln Life Insurance Company, and what they wanted to do is do high school debating all across the country, and so that's what we did. And I mean, you can see even the New York Times paid attention. This is something actually I'd love to see happen as part of our media mentoring project, where we actually go into the schools and teach kids about media, maybe do some high school debating. We've been talking about that with Meg Mott. Next slide. Oh, this was just a fun thing. Again, using your imagination. This was a project to help raise money for the Latches when it was undergoing new construction. And so we turned one of the rooms in the Latches into Rick's Cafe of Casablanca. And people would come dressed, you know, in that era. And we had special food. And we had actually, Donna had somebody who had actually worked in the movies doing set design. So it was absolutely amazing. Anyway, those are just quick things to think about. You know, let's get our imagination going. And now this particular workshop is really to, you know, help you guys with your projects. And we really want to get, after Keith and Stephanie present, to give you some ideas to keep the imagination going. We want to hear from you. So Keith, I know that one of the things you talk about is FOMO, FOMO. So can you tell us what that's about?
Yeah, it's
and all of your points. We want to hear all of your points.
All right. First,
okay.
I mean, there's a certain psychology, and you have to understand that this is the ground rules of all the other points. You know, FOMO is fear of missing out. And the reason why it was brought up in the last one was basically to say, you know, human beings, you know, we're fighting inertia. People want to know, you know, they want to go to something that they know, that they're going to be validated in going somewhere. This is why word of mouth marketing is really important, because it's validated by somebody who you trust. So what we're doing is we're working against a human being's inertia. It's easier for them to sit on the couch or stay with their family, or you know, go into their garden and work. What we have to do as event marketers is to make the buzz so large that becomes the motivating factor, is that they're going to miss out on something that they don't want to, you know, the next day they don't want to regret. And that's our job as event marketers, is to cultivate this feeling of future missing out, to get someone to break their inertia, so that they want to come out and experience your thing.
And the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think when we talk about marketing, the tools, I think we think of them as silos. Like, what is a good press release, and how do you get social media likes, and you know, how do you use a Facebook event page, and a lot of what I was talking about on the last one was not thinking of them as the end result, right? There's no checklist to get great marketing. I think it works when it's all in tandem, right? And so when you start thinking of it as an ecosystem, right? So I'm going to write a good press release so that the reformer is going to cover me, but then I'm going to use that article to promote the event on social media, and then I'm going to boost that post. And now all of a sudden I'm utilizing all of the tools in tandem to create that buzz, in addition to the traditional forms of like hanging posters and using press release and, you know, paid media and earned media. It can't just be like, you know, it used to be we'd send out the press release, everybody would look at the paper in the morning, they would read every article, and it's just not the case, you know. So you have to be disruptive. And I think the way to be disruptive is people need to see it or hear it or feel it 7, 8, 9, 10 times before they go, oh yeah, I've heard about that. There's a thing going on tomorrow. Did you know about it? And by that ecosystem approach, you're allowing for that buzz to build. And it doesn't happen by one press release or one social media post or one video on YouTube. It has to be unified.
Constant. And I think we should talk about other aspects of getting people involved. I know one of the first things we did with the stroll was to get Leahy and Sanders and some top people involved. So you want to find your champions. Who are the people that are going to help leverage your event, talk about your event, promote your event, and give people confidence that this event is something worthwhile.
Yeah.
So talk a little more about that and relationships, building relationships with the media as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're only going to be as strong as your network is working for you, because if you're the only person promoting your event, there's not a lot of credibility, right? If so, like my experiences with music and bands, and so your buddy who's in the band who plays guitar, obviously he's going to tell you about how great it's going to be because he's the guy on stage. But if you hear about it from 5, 6, 7 other people who are unrelated to the core of it, then it's going to make you take note. You're going to have more trust in it. And so, I talked about, you want to have your team, you want to have your solid team in-house, right? And for me, that's my staff and that's my board, right? That's my first inner core of people that are naturally going to be invested in what we're doing. But then I'm looking to expand that core out. So who can I get to co-present this with me, right? So who can take equal billing, right? What organizations or people out there? Who cares about this event? What's important about it? Where are we landing? And so, if I'm doing what's a good example? Bringing Yemen blues here, bringing an Israeli artist, Zohar from Yala in Brattleboro, was motivated by it. I mean, he plays the music in the restaurant all the time, even before they even came to town here. So for him, it was an opportunity to promote his culture, and his where music from where it comes from. He also has the other connection where he's a Yemenite, where Yemen blues are Yemenite Israelis. So all of a sudden, I was able to connect the dots between things that people care about and the event that we're doing. So whenever we're looking to get the word out, it's really not just about hanging a poster, getting the word out on social media. It's who are the people in the community that would care about this, that would want to be involved, or would help us champion and echo and reverberate the message that we're putting out there.
Yeah, getting the community involved, getting them to be excited and interested. You did have a little issue with that particular event, which people might. I mean, you handled it beautifully, and I think it ended up. What happened was more and more people came to the event because of a little conflict. But there, maybe another workshop could be dealing with situations where something arises unexpected in a way that could cause some potential issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of like what it's a thin line between marketing and PR, right?
Yeah.
And I would say like marketing is creating buzz and PR is sort of managing message, right? And so in a situation like that, we went from in some ways the chaos that ensued kind of helped with the marketing, but it became a PR nightmare, right? So, we were able to handle it in a way that we took the high road. We really focused on what we were doing, which I think is bringing arts and culture to the community. And there's a lot more that can be said about that. But I think that as long as you're making the best possible decisions in the moment, in doing everything you can to highlight the positive of things, I think that you're going to be received in a positive way,
right.
And so that situation was challenging and really not easy, but it was a great lesson in learning how to think positively in a very tense situation. And a lot of the community responded well to the way in which we were able to generate positive dialogue around the concerns of the show. And so that's where having a strong team, I think, really is important, and my board and staff and the community that supported us. And there were even people in my inner circle who had some concerns and expressed those, but were so motivated by the messaging and by the positive nature of what we did, stood behind and helped shoulder the responsibility to make it a great event.
Yeah, and it was handled beautifully. Let's talk about timing. I know you and I spoke before you announced the bandwagon events and how you wanted to get out front before all the other events were announced after people were able to get out a little bit during COVID. And so that was smart thinking. And it worked. Yeah. Next thing you know, you're on WCAX and all over the place.
Yeah. I think you've got to, for anybody that's interested in event marketing, I would say start playing chess. There's a lot of moves that you need to be thinking about. And so you need to think about when things are going to hit. One of the things that's in the news right now that I've been reading is, the Superman is, coming out as bisexual. And Dean Cain says, there's nothing brave about this. If you had done this 10, 15 years ago, when it was really a taboo, it would have been something. It would have been something to talk about. But Robin has come out as bisexual. They're introducing different homosexual characters in comic books, and so it's just it's not noteworthy because he's bisexual, just because he's Superman and bisexual.
Right.
And so and I thought that this was interesting, right? Timing is everything. Just like they say, like location. Well, in terms of marketing, timing is our location, right? And so with respect to the bandwagon series, we jumped out May 1st, knowing, it was a gamble, had no idea if the weather would cooperate, but we stepped out May 1st as part of the strategy. I mean, also, like, I wanted to be out early just because we wanted to do so many artists, but it wasn't lost on us that if we stepped out first, like obviously July, August, were going to be great months to do outdoor events in Vermont. We were going to be one of the first organizations to step out and do outdoor events. And I think it had significant impact because we were not competing with a lot of other events that eventually we were. But by then we had cultivated enough of an audience and a buzz that we were able to still get great numbers for our events.
Yeah. And you were very clear about, people had to wear masks and everything. Was how you were able to negotiate the messaging around COVID, I think was terrific.
Yeah, there's a psychology around whatever, in some ways, limitations are wonderful creative parameters, right? So we were able to really think through what was the psychology of the typical person that wanted to come out and experience these shows. In May, this is prior to the vaccine rollouts. So people were willing to come out, but they were willing to come out only if we were showing them that we were serious about their public health and safety. And so, and also, would it have looked differently if I was doing these shows in Mississippi, Alabama, or Florida? Probably, that would have played a part into the psychology of it. But yeah, we were very, our intent was very purposeful to be mindful to our community, to be mindful of the timing, and to be mindful of the entire gestalt of the experience.
Yeah, I think also you talked about taking video at your events, making sure you have great photos of your events, because after the fact, those things can be merchandised and marketed in, as part of your event. Don't just stop when the event is over and that's the end. It's not the end. It continues.
Right. Yeah. I said, good graphic design is important and good photography is important. And I see a lot of event marketers who stop short. They do all the hard work. They put together an event and maybe it's successful, but for me, if I'm looking at numbers and going back to that FOMO psychology, it's a matter of, if you have 250 people at your event, your videos and photos, if marketed correctly through social media and your newsletter, you can have 2,500 views. You can have more than 10 times the amount of eyeballs on your event. And those numbers, that 2,500 people, if half of them have the feeling that they missed out on something, then that's great. That's buzz building. That means that they won't miss out on the next event. And so there's a lot of event marketing that falls short of creating buzz after the event that I feel like is almost, I mean, obviously the event is the most important piece, but like all the post-marketing event is the stuff that's helping you build the next one.
Exactly. Anything else that you want to bring up at this point or mention? I'm just looking through your report here from last time.
No, I think.
Here's one. In closing, have someone who can give you honest feedback.
Oh, yeah. That's. Have a really good friend that cares enough about you that they're going to give you their honest opinion. I think the example I use is my wife. I could have just finished an event, 500 people, everybody had a glowing time, and pats on the back, congratulations. And then I was, I'd get in the car at the end of the night and I would ask her, like, okay, what are your thoughts? Like, how could this have been better? And she gives me honest feedback, and it's not meant to be critical in nature. And I take it as a positive feedback. And I think so many people, with whatever their craft is, whether they're painters or business owners, the hardest bit is learning how to take critical feedback to sharpen your blade and get better at what you do. And if you are somebody who knows everything out of the gate, you're probably going to make mistakes along the way, and people aren't going to feel comfortable telling you their opinions. And it's your job as you grow and you learn to take that feedback. There are people in my life who give me feedback, and I listen to them, and it's relegated to, you don't know what you're talking about, and I don't agree with you, and thank you. And then there's people who fill me in with so much knowledge and information that I'm able to become a better event producer and marketer. And it's really important to get honest feedback, whether it's a debrief with your team, your board, your wife, your 13-year-old daughter, Stephanie. Yes, I agree. I think she would be a wonderful person to give you honest feedback. The oil barons and the industrialists would get together in mastermind groups, usually to do nefarious types of things. But one of the things that they would really work on with each other in these mastermind groups is to help one another solve problems. And usually those were labor problems and, like I said, nefarious things that these mastermind groups were in. But it was honest feedback that they were able to give one another. And so I think that whatever it is that you're marketing, selling, creating, you want to have somebody or some people in your life that will be brave enough to give you honest feedback, and you're gracious enough to hear it. So.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think we can now move over to Stephanie and her situation with Everyone Eats. I mean, what you have done, Stephanie, is absolutely amazing with that program. It was the right thing at the right time, and you were able to really pull it off. And I understand it wasn't as easy as it might have looked.
Thanks. Keith, I wrote down a lot of notes. I'm going to try to piggyback off of a couple things you were saying. But first, you spoke a lot as an event organizer. I really identify as a community organizer and a strategizer, and that is my profession. And so what that means for me is looking at what issues are going on and how can I make sure that I have everyone who's being touched by this issue, every lens, every perspective at the table, and figure out what the solutions are and then catapult that into action. And I bring that up because that's not any different than working with media. And both of those things, all of those things boil down to relationships. It's all about relationships. So I found three things that I want to talk about that are helpful in success and really helpful in any relationship. And that is always save contacts. So if a media person approaches you for some reason, your next move is to save them to your address book on your phone, to star them in your email and never lose that contact. Number two is position yourself as a trusted source, as someone that they can pick up the phone and get an answer to in a very expedited way. And number three is to always ask. So the first thing Lynn talked about, everyone eats, I wanted to use that example to illustrate all three of these points. So a quick story. I was the beginning of the pandemic in March. I happened to write a change.org petition calling for monthly stimulus checks for everyone ongoing. It happened to go viral, and the evening news happened to call me. So yes, that is very unique and very wonderful. But I saved that producer's number from the evening news, and he was in my phone book. So he and I had a really nice conversation, and we were all set for this interview. And the next day I was gearing up. I took a shower. This was when we weren't taking showers, and I put makeup on, and he calls me and says, "I'm really sorry, we're not going to do your bit. I will reach back out to you." And I said, "Okay, no problem." I was sad. And so then we hang up, and a week later he calls me back and leaves a message and says, "Hey, I'm really sorry. We still haven't gotten around to it, but I did want to give you the opportunity. Could you speak as could any of your employees at your restaurant speak?" I'm sorry, for those of you who don't know, I also used to own Duo Restaurant in Vermont, and I still own Duo Restaurant in Denver. So can any of your employees speak as parents getting these checks? And so luckily it was on the message. So I said, "Oh gosh, no, I have no young parents right now on my staff." And so I brainstormed, okay, so this is going to point number two, always be a trusted source. So I'm going through, okay, diversity, interesting factor. Oh yes, I've got a friend that has 4 kids. That's really monumental. She's a massage therapist. Oh my God, she can't touch anybody. It's COVID. This will be perfect. And then I thought of another family. So I called him back. I pitched him. He used both of those families. So I now have built this relationship with him. So Everyone Eats starts in August. And I did number 3. I just asked. So I called up a producer of the evening news, and I said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. We're doing this thing in Vermont." And I thought about it, of why he would be interested in it and what the angle would be. And my big pitch to him was, there has been no other program that has taken federal dollars and spent it on restaurants to feed people. MREs, yes, and other food box programs, but not in privately owned businesses. So he took it, and then from there, it also catapulted to being on the Today Show. So I want to share that clip with you.
Congress passed and President Trump signed the $2.2 trillion Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, known as the CARES Act. That stimulus money went directly to individuals, to businesses, and to state and local governments. One state used its money to develop a novel program that is saving communities and could be a model for others across the country. Harry Smith has our Sunday Spotlight.
Number 7.
Imagine, if you will, that takeout supper from restaurants in your town was free. Yes, free.
It's real good. Oh, it's easy. No, it's been great. Yes. Yeah, hands down. 5 stars.
In Brattleboro, Vermont, the cars line up 4 evenings a week to pick up meals prepared by local chefs like Corey Bratton. He and his wife Kira opened a new restaurant here in February. Then came the COVID shutdown. Talk about timing.
How close did you come to losing your business or just quitting?
It was close.
There were some tough conversations about like what the plan would be, how to pivot, diversify, figure out something else.
To the rescue, a state plan that cleverly stretches federal CARES Act cash, using restaurants to feed food insecure Vermonters.
So with one program, we're able to save restaurants, feed our community, and support our local growers and farmers.
Stephanie Bonin runs both the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance and Everyone Eats.
I've had conversations with restaurant owners who are crying over the phone of how much this means to them.
Restaurants are rehiring laid-off workers, and local farmers, like Elizabeth Wood, reap the benefit too.
My husband read something about it in the paper and was like, we got to contact those restaurants, get some of them buying again.
Which they have. It's a far cry from a few months back when the Vermont National Guard was handing out MREs. These freshly made meals ready to eat feed the needy, hard-pressed nonprofits, and COVID-weary families who don't need a reservation for some of the best food in town.
I know a lot of people are struggling right now, my family included, with food right now, so this is just a big, big help.
We get to feed our community, we get to have our employees back, and we get to, just be doing what we love to do.
How big a shot in the arm is this for Brattleboro?
This is huge for Brattleboro, and I also think that it is huge for the feeling of community that COVID took away from us.
It's a rare win, win, win.
Enjoy your dinner.
How's the food?
The food is good. The food is great.
For Sunday Today, Harry Smith, Brattleboro, Vermont.
So going back to number 2 with position yourself as a trusted source. Each one of those people that he interviewed, I pitched to them. So after they said yes to the story, I said, well, there are 3 pillars. So here's who I can get you for this pillar and this pillar and this pillar. So Eric Salzman, who's the producer, at the end of the whole show turned to me and said, that was the most well-organized shooting that I've ever been on. Thanks for doing all the work for me. So I will give you now an example of when that doesn't always work. So when I first started being in this position as a community organizer mindset, I said, okay, I need to go where the community is. And at that moment, roughly almost 5 years ago, the community talked about nothing but parking.
Yes.
Incredibly boring issue in my mind. But I said, that's okay. Okay, so everyone wants to talk about parking. Let's do something around parking. The other thing was we were going into mud season. I took the position at the end of November. And so we were sort of going into mud season. I knew that it would be coming, and I knew that all of downtown would be really slow. So I decided to do the Golden Ticket campaign, which I teamed up with Tavernier Chocolate. They created a specific chocolate bar. I bought 1,000 chocolate bars, and we wrapped 3 of them with a golden ticket inside. And then we positioned ourselves, like we started the chess game that Keith was talking about, what move to make first. And we announced that we, a la, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, we were going to have our golden ticket. And you would have to go into stores downtown, buy chocolate bars, and then we would announce in the newspaper front page the minute somebody found the golden ticket. And the golden ticket was for 1 free year of parking. So it happened And then all of a sudden, the Reformer ran a story, AP Wire picked it up. And here was my job was only to answer and get them information as fast as I could, because this is only a catchy story in the first, 48 hours. And well, I actually had thought it would go on a week, but the 3 tickets were found, I think, within 48 hours or 72 hours, which is crazy that 1,000 chocolate bars were bought then. But anyway, and so I was needing to make sure I responded to the newspapers. So I was creating that ecosystem. I was reposting the articles on my social media. I was keeping the buzz up, doing all this. And then out of nowhere, Inside Edition called and wanted to do a spotlight. And then from Inside Edition, Conan O'Brien talked about it on his monologue. I literally, I was like on cloud 9. I couldn't believe it. So I'm doing number 1. I'm saving these media contacts, like figuring out who the producers are, because Conan O'Brien didn't contact me. It just happened. So let me show you those 2 clips and then I'll tell you the failure.
In one town, opening a chocolate bar like in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory could be worth $400. The town of Brattleboro, Vermont is living out the Candyman's dream. But instead of golden ticket winners getting a factory tour, they get free parking for a year.
Yeah, parking's a little difficult in downtown Brattleboro.
Dar and John own the company making the coveted bars and are just as excited giving them out as people are to get them. They say the golden ticket promotion is a way to bring in more business downtown.
In Vermont, we're in what's known as the mud season. It's in between when there's lots of ski people up and when there's a beautiful summer.
The couple worked with a local business to make 1,000 limited edition bars, with 3 golden tickets hidden in the batch. Each candy costs $3.25. Parking enforcement is also in on the reenactment, handing out movie tickets to see the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie downtown.
People will get free tickets placed on their windshields and will hopefully realize that it's not a real parking ticket and be very happy.
Sounds like in this town, getting a ticket is a win-win, as long as you win.
Run for it, Charlie! Run straight home and don't stop till you get there!
For InsideEdition.com, I'm Kelly Nealon.
Here's a weird story. You're going to like this one. A Vermont candy maker. Yeah, they have candy makers in Vermont. A Vermont candy maker is hiding 3 golden tickets in its chocolate bars, and whoever finds them is going to win free parking. Yeah. This, of course, inspired by that classic children's story, Charlie and the Municipal Parking Ordinance. What is that?
I don't know. Okay, so remember, you can never control exactly what the media says about your events. So Inside Edition, toting my line, which was $400 for the year of parking in Brattleboro, was a win. I was trying to tell people that there are actually annual passes and it's actually very affordable. Dar from Tavernier saying parking is difficult in downtown Brattleboro was not a win. And then Conan, if you notice, never mentioned Brattleboro, but at the moment I didn't care. So anyway, the failure was that I researched who are the producers. I, thanked them for spotlighting us on Inside Edition and Conan O'Brien, never heard back. So I didn't get that number 1 Rolodex. I wasn't able to catapult that into the next one, which is true, which really is a failure because I wasn't able to build that relationship and now I can't use it again. I think that the biggest thing about all of these is that if you don't think to build relationships like you do with a friend, like you do with coalitions, like you do, in all different areas of our life, if you treat media like they're up on this pedestal, then they will remain there. But if you treat them of cultivating like you do everything, then it's actually a very much of a win-win situation where they're looking for stories and you're looking for people to broadcast what you're doing. And so I hope, if anything, you walk away feeling like it's actually quite attainable and not this big, huge, scary thing.
I think those are excellent points. And having been in this media business for years and years, you hit the nail on the head. I notice sometimes I get so, well, so-and-so called me from, the Today Show or whatever, or, Good Morning America or the Reformer, but they never call them back. You immediately, if a reporter calls, I don't care what, call them right away. And as Stephanie says, you've got to keep their information. I still have, shows my age, I still have the book that I used in New York City of all of the contacts for all of the television shows, all of the media that I would, and of course they change every 5 minutes. So you have to keep crossing them out and putting a new one in and all that, but it's critical. And, there are things that down the road we'll be talking about in terms of this media mentoring workshop, but you used the word angle. You used the word pitch. Now, I wonder in this group that's with us, are those words, or are those things that you think about when you want to reach the media, or if you send out a press release? Because the press release is the first step. And that's just the beginning. But then, like Stephanie said, she had an idea. She has thought it through. She knew all the angles that would interest the media. So it's really important to, stay on top of the news. What's going in the world? Who are the people in your community, your relationships that you can trust to tell the story, to help tell the story. So I think we've talked enough. And now I'm hoping that maybe Randy or Billy might want to ask us a couple of questions. Maybe you have an idea. Maybe you have an event cooking. Maybe let us try and help you. Hopefully somebody will respond. I also see there's Billy. And if everybody doesn't know, Billy is, and I think we can't hear you quite yet, she runs the wonderful girls camp in Dummerston, summer camp.
Oh, Billy, I need to get a spot at your summer camp for my daughter.
January 1st, we're opening registration. I find this incredibly helpful, and it's very validating to hear the things that I believe are the core of marketing, and that's the building of relationships. Over and over again, I've had that validated for me since I started doing this job 10 years ago. I guess one of the things I'm curious about is sometimes I feel like there's like an uneven amount of coverage from the press, and I don't necessarily, I know you, like you said, you don't always have control. You never have control over what the media does once you've done an interview or whatever. But I feel like I'm curious if I'm the only one who really tries to ration the amounts of time that you reach out to the press in terms of stories or coming and doing a photographic essay, whatever it might be. And is there any, is any coverage good coverage, or is there such a thing as being featured too often in newspapers and that kind of thing? I don't want to waste it, I guess is what I'm saying.
So I can jump into that in the sense that as much as I can get, in this case, Next Stage, into the press, I think it's great. But what I don't want to do is to burn out the producer, the reporter, the editor, where they go, oh, that guy again, right? There's a fine line. You want to balance between, hey, I'm providing you with plenty of content. I'm making your job easier. And as much as I can be in here, it'd be great. But what I do try to, in our business, we have more events than there is room to cover them. And so what I try to do is I prioritize which events that could be angled to provide stories that most enrich the brand that I'm cultivating, right? So, for example, if there is an artist coming to Next Stage that has been here numerous times before, compared to an artist that is being introduced that we're cultivating and also maybe has some sort of ethnic, cultural, racial diversity that we want to angle, or there's some sort of narrative like, you know, we're bringing the musical director from Sesame Street up here. So like if there are stories that have weight that add to the overall dynamic of the brand that we're cultivating, I will, if I have a relationship with the editor or the producer, I will call them and say, hey, there's 5 things coming up. And I know you probably don't have room for all of these 5, but I want to let you know about these 5. These 2 are the most important. So if you're going to choose any of them, from my perspective, these are the ones that have the most weight. And so I think as much press as I can get and buzz as I can generate, I'm going to get without burning the personal relationship that I'm cultivating.
I want to add that I also have that fear, Billy, and I get tired of my own thing, my own story. And so that really resonates with me. And I was thinking one of the ways that I get around that is that it goes back to my being a trusted source. So I can imagine that media, you're a trusted source if someone wants to talk about how parents are dealing with school closures. You're a trusted source if they're talking about employment and if high school kids are working anymore, or they just watch video games. And so you have depth to your story that's more than just your event. So let them decide if your event is not timely, but because you have this relationship that you're giving just as much as you're taking, I think you'll feel less hoggy about it.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, I totally agree. What are you thinking about for this summer? What in terms of COVID and all of that?
We've just come off a really hard summer. Like, it was very difficult this summer. We had camp. We didn't have it the year before. We did have camp this summer. We had a full camp. It filled up in a week, and it was great. But we worked really hard for it to be great. We had all sorts of protocols in place beforehand, all sorts of things we had to do differently because of COVID. I think it's pretty typical, but we underestimated how challenging the isolation would affect them even in the summer. They were so excited about being together. Kids were thrilled to be here. And it was exhausting for both counselors and campers to be together 24/7. You haven't been with anybody, and then all of a sudden you're sleeping next to somebody, you're eating with them. It was mental health issues were challenging this summer. There was just a lot going on. And one of the things I really want to focus on going forward is building our Launching Leaders program. We have, and we did get some grant funding for that this summer, which was wonderful. But it's this program we started probably 5 years ago now, and we've called it Launching Leaders, and it's for 14, 15, and 16-year-olds who, many of them aren't old enough for the traditional job market. A lot of them don't drive yet, and they're a really vulnerable population. And so what we're trying to do is to build an entire leadership program for that particular age group, because there isn't much for them. And so this summer was the first summer that we were sort of launching that, and that kind of dovetailed with COVID happening, and it was challenging. It was very challenging. I learned some hard lessons of things I'll do differently next time. But when I tried to reach out to media about it, they wanted to talk about the campers. They wanted to talk about other things. And this is sort of my pet project right now, because I feel like it's really going to be pivotal in not only in these kids' lives, but also in the direction that the camp goes, as far as having those young teenagers want to stay and be part of the staff, want to take these skills that they're learning and take those out into the community, into the larger world, carry them with them to college, that kind of thing. Yeah, Stephanie.
I have an idea. Have you, tell me if you've already thought of this, pairing with BDCC, who also does the sophomore summit and pipeline work. You guys could co-author an op-ed together to talk about what it takes to get these kids to success.
I have not thought of that. That's
another
a great idea.
So another idea. I'm gonna Stephanie. I love getting together because we're a mile a minute.
I'm writing this down.
Yeah, I mean, so why do the news organizations want to ask you about the campers and not the teenagers, right? That's the shiny object. So you have a shiny object here, but you're going like, but look over here.
Right.
Your responsibility, if this is the goal, if this is what you want them to pay attention to, is like to make this shinier. So like, what other leadership programs and opportunities can you bring on? Like what types, like BDCC would be a great partner. There's a Leadership Vermont program. Maybe there's a teen leadership program that you could find. Maybe you could work with local employers to pipeline these kids for a job, doing some sort of work where if they put in a year or two, they're guaranteed a position working in a place. Whereas if you make the narrative of the leadership program a little bit more attractive by bringing in all these other people, parents would be in, maybe there's a collection of parents where you can pull together to train, simple accounting and I don't know, you know the story better than I do, but like, take a pen to paper and think about, dream as much as you can, all the assets and resources that are available to you, and not even available to you, but like your network. Who do you know? I mean, even this conversation is an asset and a resource to you, right?
Absolutely.
So like, could you
That's
go
what we hope for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So bringing in more, like I think I was talking about Stephanie, what did I say at our dinner the other night? It was I used a noun and I verbized it. You want to, what was it? It was like spectacleizing, something like that. Like you're taking something that's like common and ordinary and you're making a spectacle out of it, right? And like what you want to do is somehow pull as many different threads together that make it a spectacle.
Good. I think now
That's really helpful.
we should be talking to anybody else who has some questions. Who is brave enough to speak up, or how can we help you? Randy, are you still there? I don't know if she is. Oh, Randy? Randy Solon, are you there? I see Guy.
I'm here, but I don't have any pressing questions. I'm gathering information.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
It's always good to gather.
Thank you.
And Guy, any questions or suggestions or thoughts? Jeff? Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up with Keith and certainly Stephanie chime in, but if you could speak a little bit more thoroughly about the sense of timing. I think a lot of us are always, when we're putting on events, is it 2 weeks before to begin reaching out? Is it 2 months before? It's that sense that always seems to be a question for the work that we do.
So I think that part of this is going to be particular to, there is no textbook answer that is going to be universal. For me, the timeline, I'll speak to my experience, right? The timeline that I have sort of adopted is really developed over working where I came from in Jacksonville, Florida. And there are things that I have had to learn that are unique to Windham County. And I'm learning, like in Jacksonville, no publication would ever reprint a press release, ever. And so there, like, that's an example of how in Windham County, my press releases will get reprinted verbatim. So I have to be much more conscious about the angle and the narrative that I want to construct with my press release, because it's going to be printed word for word. So my timeline is, I like to have my posters. Now, in my presentation last week or 2 weeks ago, good design matters, because that's what's going to disrupt someone's visual inertia, right? They're going to go through their day, and if you have a striking poster, it will arrest them even for half a second. But my posters, I'd like them to go up 4 to 6 weeks in advance. And then I get everything in place, right? All of my relationships and earned media. And that has to be thought out, because some publications are daily, some are weekly, some are monthly, some are quarterly. And so you really need to think really far ahead about when to reach out to your media around that. And then I don't like to really start like full bore publicizing anything that I do more than 3 weeks out. I feel like 3 weeks gives someone the opportunity to hit their radar, have the date mean something to them 3 weeks away, 2 weeks away. And it also, they don't forget it. If they see something 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks out, they may say, oh, I want to come to that, and then forget about it. So
Right.
3 weeks out, I start my ticketing, my newsletter, my all of those things. And then I make sure that that's when I'm coordinating my boosted posts or my boosted events. I'm using my earned media to promote the event. And I'm really utilizing all of my collaborative partners, my co-presenters, my fans, my inner circles, to help me boost all of the things that I'm doing within that time frame.
Okay.
My 2 cents.
The other thing that both Keith and I have examples of doing is doing series, so that your effort gets built upon rather than one-offs. So the summer series, oh my gosh, I'm saying Barnyard. What's my
bandwagon?
Thank you, bandwagon. Was just built on itself, but so the press got easier and easier, and Gallery Walk is the same thing, 6-month series. So it just, and then the other thing is, don't let perfect be the evil of doing.
Yes.
Don't let perfect make you do nothing. How about that?
Perfection is the enemy of good. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and don't forget to use your imagination. Knowing, also following the news, knowing what's in the news, that's critical as you're planning, any event. We talked about who are the spokespeople, who is your team, who can you trust? If you have a huge event, what you think is really going to be a big event, I would get something out earlier, just as a heads up, and just, especially for a magazine or something like that. I would get something out earlier. Usually the media, like the Reformer and the Commons, want it 2 weeks in advance. And don't forget the weeklies. Don't forget the timing of the weeklies. Sometimes if you have a really newsy event, you want to give everybody fair shake. So figure out when you're going to announce, so that both papers can get it and have it come out on the same day. That's not always important, but if it's something really newsworthy for the town, I think that's something to think about.
Also, keep in mind the natural rhythm and flow of your team and your community, right? And so what I mean by that is, I was blessed in Florida before I left to have one of the best graphic designers that I've ever worked with, and probably one of the best designers in Jacksonville. And because he was so sought out, and I was a free client for him because he was a partner in the organization, we got relegated to, I needed to put deadline after deadline after deadline. So what I would do is I would try to preload the work for him. So when I was booking the artist and thinking about the date, I would start talking to him then about trying to get on his calendar so that we needed to know that he had 3, 4, 5 months sometimes to design this poster. And because I can't really go out and start my whole process until I have my marketing collateral. That's really where it all begins. And so knowing your team to help you kind of think about your calendar is going to be really important. You know, like there are certain things about Next Stage that like I have to be mindful of the workload that my staff can do. And so in that, I'm preloading my strategy around when things need to begin so that I can be ready to market and promote and create that maximum buzz that I'm trying to. So, yeah.
Jeff, did you leave us? Jeff Burgess? Jeff actually he's a new board member for the Commons, and he's going to be doing some of the workshops in November and December. So he was taking a peek at what we're doing. And actually the next workshop will be November 9th, and it's going to be about opinion writing. We have a good panel of folks to talk, and I think that'll be a hot subject for folks. A lot of opinions in Brattleboro, in the area. We're going to help you get them out to the world in the right way. If there is nothing else, I'm looking at the time. It's 8:33. We could go a little longer if people are still around. Otherwise, I think we can thank everybody for coming. This will be available as a recording, and we have to thank BCTV as one of our sponsors, our media sponsor, as well as Brattleboro Savings and Loan. This program we're sort of in a pilot stage at the moment. We will be looking for grants to continue it and looking for sponsors as well. So thank you all for coming, and hopefully we'll see you downtown or see you soon.